Wow, everyone's looking at me. Cool. So I guess I'm doing the sermon today, but before I begin, can everyone look up here at the youth? These teenagers put this entire service together in less than 3 weeks, and I think they've done a phenomenal job. Can we get them a round of applause? Awesome. So today in the early service, we read Acts 4, where Peter and John healed a man and were preaching about the Lord's powers when they were faced by the captain of the temple, priests, and the Sadducees. Now Peter and John were put under arrest and then put on trial the next day. The last time these same people had gathered together for something to do with Jesus, they had committed murder. We know that Peter and John lived on, but they could have easily thought that they were going to be killed now, standing in front of the Sanhedrin. I'm sorry. All right. Okay. Peter and John were put under arrest and then put on trial the next day. The last time these same people had gathered to do something with Jesus, they had committed murder. We know that Peter and John lived on, but standing before the Sanhedrin at this moment, they could have well thought they were going to be killed because of what Peter was about to say. Though he confronts them dead on, saying, "Jesus Christ of Nazareth, whom you crucified, whom God raised from the dead." Then he begins to talk about how Jesus is the cornerstone that they rejected. Now, if the chief cornerstone of anything is laid at even a slightly erroneous angle, everything built on top of that is going to be angled slightly erroneously. Now, likewise, if the cornerstone of someone's faith is something other than Jesus Christ, that person's faith is going to be angled erroneously at best. Peter is being faithful here even in this trying time, and this scared the high priest. So he decided to threaten them, telling them never to speak or teach in the name of the Lord. Upon hearing this, Peter said, "Whether it is right in the sight of God to listen to you more than to God, you judge, for we cannot but speak of the things that we have seen and heard." This man literally said flat out no to the high priest, who could have him killed in seconds. Here, Peter is laying down his life for Jesus. Here, Peter is demonstrating that when God does anything for us, whether it's healing us, calling us to be part of his kingdom, etc., we shouldn't walk away from God. Instead, we should stand up for God, even if it means we need to lay down our life, for it will turn out the right way. Maybe not the greatest way for us, but the greatest way for God, and that's all that matters. Today, we also read the gospel, where we hear Jesus say, "I am the good shepherd." Now, this brings to mind David, the shepherd boy who slew a lion in defense of his sheep. Surely some shepherds lose their lives trying to protect their sheep from wild animals or thieves. Others lose their footing in search of their lost sheep at night, suffering injury or even death. Being a shepherd is not for the faint-hearted. But Jesus goes above and beyond that. A good shepherd will risk his life to protect the sheep, but that is different from laying down one's life. The shepherd who risks his life for his sheep does not expect to die, but expects to live. Occasionally, a shepherd will die in an encounter with animals or thieves, but most will not. People who engage in risky occupations typically believe that it will be the other person who will die. They don't plan to lay down their lives, but rather to make their foe lay down his or her life. Jesus literally laid down his life for us. Jesus is not just a shepherd. Jesus is a good shepherd. Jesus is the good shepherd. And we treasure the picture of Jesus, the good shepherd. He's holding lambs in his arms, protecting and caring for them. We are those lambs. In John 10, Jesus gives us the reason why we can be so sure and certain about his good shepherd status. He has authority to do what he does, and he cares for us, even enough to lay down his life. To me, one of the most powerful verses in the Bible is John 10, 3-4, which states, "The sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice." Now, in a sheep's relationship with their shepherd, the sheep know their shepherd. They know their voice, their face, their walk, their talk, their everything. But in God's relationship with us, we don't always know our shepherd's voice. We have to search for it, and it's hard. I've been going to church my entire life, and I'm sure a lot of you have too, and can't hear God's voice, or can't see his face. And it can make you feel lonely or different from everyone else because you can't see this God that everyone's talking about. And I'm not going to stand up here and tell y'all how to see God or how you're a bad Christian because you can't hear him when you pray, because neither can I. When I pray, I don't get a response. When I cry, I don't feel some support and love from some unseen being. And I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. I had a friend in middle school named Maddie. She and I were best friends. I knew everything about her. She knew everything about me. And one thing I knew about her was that she loved the Lord. She was always talking about these dreams that she had about talking with God and how she felt the Holy Spirit in everything she did. And I was jealous because I worked hard and I prayed hard, but I still couldn't feel that God, that presence that she felt. 3 months ago, Maddie killed herself. That sent me into one of the worst places I've ever been. Not only did I lose my best friend, but I couldn't help wondering why she was so sad if she was so close to God. Sometimes sheep run away. Sometimes sheep are disobedient to their shepherds. But Maddie, I think she did what she did to get closer to God. She dealt with depression, anxiety, bipolar depression. She was in so much pain, and she knew that the only way out was to go straight to her Lord. And I know that she's in heaven right now listening to this sermon. Her death has actually brought me a little closer to God. I've been thinking about how he died for us, and all he expects from us is to follow him and to listen to him. I also suffer from depression and anxiety. As I was typing this, I was shaking because I was so nervous about giving this. And obviously, keeps stuttering. But when you think about it, Jesus laid down his life so that we could live. So the least I could do is face my anxiety, get up here, and try to spread a message. But that's the great part about God's grace. I could have easily said no to Pastor about doing the sermon. Easily. And one of these youth, they would have done the sermon, and it would have been absolutely great. God would forgive me. I would live on. He would love me, and no matter what I did, he would still love me. And all he asks from us is to try to listen to him. Even if you don't hear a response, just try to listen. Even if it takes you your entire life, you will hear a response. Because even if it did take your entire life to hear that response, that means that you spent your life devoted to God and devoted to hearing his voice. And that is a life well lived.